Everyone in the town of Riverton knew about Mr. Howard's clock shop. It stood at the very end of the main street, squeezed between a closed bakery and an old bookstore. The signboard was cracked, the windows dusty, and the sound of ticking clocks constantly floated in the air. But what surprised people most was not the shop, it was the boy who worked there. His name was Leo. Leo was only 16, yet he spent his afternoons surrounded by broken clocks, tiny screws, and gears no one else understood. He was quiet, observant, and often ignored. At school, teachers thought he was slow because he rarely spoke. Students thought he was strange because he preferred silence over noise. What no one knew was that Leo listened to Chimie itself. Leo's father had once been a clockmaker too. Their small house was always filled with ticking sounds. When Leo was little, his father would place old watches in front of him and say, "Time is like people. If you listen carefully, you can understand what's wrong." Then one winter, Leo's father passed away suddenly. After that, Leo stopped talking almost completely. Words felt useless when time had stolen the one person who truly understood him. Mr. Howard, an old friend of Leo's father, took him in not as charity, but as purpose. Leo began helping in the shop, quietly learning what his hands already seemed to know. Years passed. Leo could fix clocks no one else could. Grandfather clocks that hadn't chimed in decades, pocket watches frozen in time, music boxes with broken hearts. People came from nearby towns just to watch him work. Still, Leo remained invisible. One day, something different happened. The mayor's assistant walked into the shop holding a velvet box. Inside was the town's oldest and most valuable clock, a massive tower clock that stood in the center of Rip. It had stopped working for the first time in over 100 years. "We've tried everyone," the assistant said nervously. "If this clock doesn't work before Founders Day, the celebration will be canceled." Mr. Howard examined the parts and shook his head. "This clock needs time," he said slowly, "and patience." The assistant sighed. "You have 1 week." That night, Leo couldn't sleep. The tower clock wasn't just metal and gears, it was memory. It rang during weddings, funerals, festivals, and moments that defined the town. Leo felt drawn to it in a way he couldn't explain. The next morning, he asked Mr. Howard something he hadn't asked anyone in years. "Can I try?" Leo whispered. Mr. Howard looked at him, surprised but not doubtful. He nodded. The clock was brought into the shop piece by piece. It was enormous, complex, and damaged in ways that manuals couldn't explain. As days passed, Leo worked silently, his fingers moving with careful precision. He noticed things others missed: a hairline, crack, a slightly uneven gear, a rhythm that felt wrong. At school, people laughed when they heard Leo was fixing the tower clock. "He doesn't even talk," they said. "He'll fail," others whispered. Leo heard them, but for once, he didn't let the words stop him. On the 5th night, disaster struck. A gear snapped. Leo froze. The room felt heavy. Years of silence pressed down on him. Failure stared back from the broken metal. Mr. Howard placed a hand on his shoulder. "Some things break," he said gently. "That doesn't mean they can't be healed." Leo took a deep breath. He remembered his father's words. "Listen carefully." He worked all night. By morning, the clock was whole again. Founders Day arrived. The entire town gathered in the square. The tower stood silent. The mayor gave a nervous speech. Children fidgeted. People checked their watches. Then tick-tick chime. The clock roared back to life, louder and clearer than ever before. The crowd gasped, then erupted into applause. Bells echoed across Riverton, as if the town itself had taken a deep breath after holding it for years. The mayor asked who had fixed it. Mr. Howard stepped aside. Leo stood there, shaking. For the first time, Leo spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I did." The crowd fell silent. Then they clapped, not politely, but proudly. That evening, people came to the shop, not with broken clocks, but with thanks. Some apologized, some smiled awkwardly. Leo listened, not bitter, not angry, just present. Later that night, Leo stood alone beneath the tower clock. He looked up as it chimed again. Time hadn't taken everything. It had given him something, to a voice, a purpose, and the courage to be seen. And for the first time since his father's death, Leo smiled without sadness, because he finally understood. Time doesn't just move forward. It heals.